Gee, with the musical lead in, I could add another bite of my cookie.
From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Wednesday, April the 19th, the year 2017. And now, here they are, smiling, happy, breathing on their own.
Eating a cookie.
Jim and Rich.
Eating a cookie.
I could have had two of them with that musical lead in. Jeez, I could have finished the box you had here, for God's sakes.
A week ago today, who would have thought that it was the Chicago Bulls that would be carrying our banner high in the Windy City?
Lord, oh, lordy.
What a week. This wasn't.
We've got the Cubs on a 4-game losing streak. The White Sox are at 500. The Cubs are a game under 500. The Hawks have managed to score 2 goals in 10 periods of hockey. And the Bulls won a playoff game.
Yeah.
And
now, what do you mean, 10 periods of hockey? Yeah,
it was overtime.
That's right.
It was overtime last night.
Yeah.
Got shut out for 6 periods. 7 periods.
7 periods, yeah.
Didn't score a goal for 7 periods, and then all of a sudden, 2 quick goals, and that's the end of it. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Since the Chicago sports scene is so Jim, you know what? I don't know. Did you ever hear of Billy Rogel? Yeah. Billy Rogel was a middle infielder for the Tigers. Yeah. Did you know that in 1934, Billy Rogel hit 3 home runs, which is no big deal. But did you know that he knocked in 100 runs that year?
Really?
With 3 home runs. Now that is an interesting stat, isn't it?
How many doubles? How many triples?
I didn't really take a look at that.
Well, you got to look at those.
I mean,
you got to look.
I look at 3 home runs and 100 runs.
3 home runs and 100 runs batted in. That's pretty doggone. That's pretty doggone amazing. Here's another bit of trivia. Name the only 2 players in Major League history whose last names begin with UE.
With UE? Let's see. That's a good question. I don't think I'm going to come up with a ready answer. You got
Koji Uehara.
Huh?
Koji Uehara.
Begin with the UE?
The last names begin with UE.
Oh, I thought you said with a UE.
Last names begin with UE.
Oh, okay. They begin. Okay. Well, Uehara. Okay. Who's the other one?
If he came down, if he's still traveling with them to do the games, since the Brewers are in town, Bob Uecker.
Oh, Bob Uecker. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
Well, that takes care of my planning for today. You covered me for Rich.
Did you see that? I'm looking at. I always use Yahoo as my search engine, so I'm looking at what's trending, and I see this guy Trey Mancini, and I see he's dressed up as a baseball player. So I hit it. I hit his picture.
Hit the link,
and he had 4 home runs in his first, I don't know how many games, but they are saying that is it 7 home runs? I think in his first dozen games, but there's only 2 players in history who have had a faster start than he has home run wise, and neither of them is one that that you're going to get, even though one is as recent as last year. And he plays for the Colorado Rockies.
Oh, no, okay. Nolan Arianda?
No, it's the shortstop.
Oh,
Story.
Okay.
Trevor Story.
I was about to say Tulowitzki, but I said, no, wait a minute. He used to play for them.
But the other guy is a guy by the name of Dino Rastelli, who played with the Pirates in the late 40s and early 50s.
Oh, okay.
So it was I just got on a trivia binge this morning, and I started looking at all these things, and I'm like, holy crap. I didn't know how amusing our conversation was going to be about our sports teams, so I'm
finding nothing amusing right now.
Nothing amusing. What's your?
I had to, but just little bits of things you hear along the way that when I was driving in the CBS Sports Minute, and I can't remember who it was doing it. I think Boomer Esiason this morning was talking about down in whatever county in Florida that the Blue Jays train in. I think it's wherever Dunedin is. I don't know what county it is.
Yeah.
But there was some discussion about wanting to spend some, raise a bond issue to build a new spring training stadium for them.
Mm-hmm.
And the experts said that the Blue Jays are responsible for $70.6 million in revenue to the county every year during spring training.
Wow.
Which could be a reasonable number, but the local politicians say, well, this guy isn't really an expert considering that he teaches marketing and wine tasting at Florida State.
Oh.
I don't know how they don't know how he managed to come up with that number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, did you see? I looked at there was an article about in the Tribune on Sunday about what is the quarterback Mahomes? What's his first name?
Patrick.
Okay. Did you realize that his father, who is also Pat Mahomes, played 11 years of Major League Baseball and 1 season with the Cubs?
I realized that after I read that.
Yeah, which you know what? Actually, this is what I started to think after I read that. I'm thinking, here's a kid who maybe I could see, just don't think about his ability, but you know what? He had a father who was pretty much a journeyman pitcher.
Right.
11 seasons in the majors. Mm-hmm. And I would say, you know what, from being around his father, seeing that his family moved probably fairly frequently, here's a guy who at least mentally may be ready for professional sports because he understands it's not like the glamour push thing. It's not, this is a job. This is something that is not always, how would you say it, as glamorous as everybody would make it out to be. And I would think that his mental approach would be a good one.
I think it would be. I think he understands that there's always going to be a certain amount of failure in the game. Let's see. His father played in the major leagues from 1992 to 2003 for the Minnesota Twins, the Boston Red Sox, the New York Mets, the Texas Rangers, the Chicago Cubs, and the Pittsburgh Pirates.
What, 42 and 39? Was that the record that he
You got it.
He had 1 year, though, I think, with the Mets where he was like 8 or 9 and 0.
Yeah.
He had a big year.
42 and 39. His earned run average was 5.47 for his career.
Wow.
And he struck out 452 batters. He also played 1997 and 1998 for the Yokohama Bay Stars.
Oh, okay.
Most recently pitched and played for the Grand Prairie Air Hogs of the Independent American Association in 2009.
Oh, wow. So he was still active not that long ago. But I 2002 was the year that he played for the Cubs. I think he was 1-1, and but there was a year that he pitched for the Mets where he was 8 or 9 and 0.
Now that
I obviously in relief. So
now that I closed the page, now you got me curious. So now I'm going to have to go back and look for professional career.
Now, I didn't realize if you would have asked me,
8-0 late in the 1999 season and helped the Mets reach the playoffs.
Yeah, a year like that can probably now. How many more years did he play after that?
Well, that was 1999. His major league career was over in 2003, but he continued on as really a minor league journeyman. He pitched in 2003. He pitched primarily for Pirates AAA affiliate, the Nashville Sounds, while he was only in 9 games for the Pirates. In 2004, he split the season between 3 organizations, pitching for the Edmonton Trappers and the Montreal Expos farm system, the Albuquerque Isotopes. That's a great name. I love that nickname. In the Florida Marlins system, and then again in Nashville. In 2005, he was in the Dodgers organization and pitched for the Las Vegas 51s. And then in 2006, he turned to the Independent League, and he played for the Long Island Ducks in the Atlantic League, and he went 11-4 there. He was signed with the Royals in August, but was released a month later. 2007, the Sioux Falls Canaries in the American Association. And then the Blue Jays signed him up, and he appeared in 3 games for the Syracuse Chiefs and became a free agent at the end of the year. Here's another great nickname in the Atlantic League, the Southern Maryland Blue Crabs.
Yeah,
I love
beautiful.
them. I love those names. I love those names. Appeared in 2 games with them, and before returning to Sioux Falls, and then split the 2009 season between Sioux Falls and Grand Prairie.
So, Jim, what you know what? What about our Hawks falling on their faces, my friend?
You know, I saw Game 1. I thought they played fine Game 1. Puck just didn't go in the net.
Yeah.
Game 2, I have no idea what happened in Game 2. I felt a little positive last night. We were out in Bartlett last night, and unfortunately for one of those things for a wake. But we stopped off at to see Gibbon Michelle out there, so watched a little bit of the game, and saw him score those 2 quick goals.
Well,
And that was the end. And that was the end of the excitement.
You know, the other thing is you have to be a little lucky. And last night Nashville was real lucky, I would say, because the first goal bounced off the glass and came right in front of the net. And before Crawford could turn around, it was in the net. And the second goal was a little iffy as well. It looked like there might have been some goaltender interference.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
they chose not to call it, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah. Yes.
So do you ever get the feeling though that the league, and in this case we're talking about the NHL, but I'm not talking about the NHL only, but sometimes I get the feeling that the league would prefer certain teams not advance because they've been there too many times before. I thought that what I saw of the first game and the second, I mean, the refs are letting a lot go, a lot. And last night they finally did call some penalties against Nashville. But, I'm just I mean, the call on the second goal, I mean, I don't know how you could look and say that he didn't interfere with the goaltender.
That's right. Somebody I was flipping through a Twitter feed, and I think it was Ryan Baker from Channel 2 News. His comment was, "How was that not goaltender interference?" You know, the other thing you have to think about too, as far as what the leagues want, what's their premier event? Obviously, the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to drive the league TV wise? Teams with big ratings.
Yeah, I agree with you, but
And I think you better realize that if you don't, this might, as things are starting to shape up here. After this season, you might have to get used to a Stanley Cup final between somebody, with some of these young players like Edmonton and Winnipeg or or Toronto.
yeah,
And you're not going to get the American, you're not going to get the American audience to watch it.
yeah, that's true.
So,
That's true. But I still think at the same time the league is always pushing. All the leagues are pushing parity.
Oh, all the leagues are pushing
And,
parity, of course.
I would say that Chicago, of course, if the Hawks can advance, they're going to be a huge TV draw.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Nashville has been there how many times before? Maybe you give them a little leg up, So
Well, and I'm looking to see where the other series are right now.
well. Washington and Toronto are close to being even.
And how about the Rangers in Montreal?
They are. I think they're like, everybody's like 1-2 or 1-1, 2-1, something like that.
Okay. Columbus and Pittsburgh.
I think Pittsburgh's going to wipe them out.
I think so.
I
thought that was 3-0.
Yeah.
In Edmonton and San Jose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, though, Jim. With the young players, though, you're still going to have Pittsburgh's going to have Crosby for a long time. The
Sure.
Hawks are going to have Kane for a long
Sure.
time.
And Tays for a long time.
Hey, there's something to talk about. This is 2 playoff series in a row that the captain has not scored a point.
He's kind of disappeared, and he had kind of a quiet season too.
He really did.
Relatively quiet season.
He really did. So, you know what though? These guys, how do you keep motivating yourself to I'll tell you what I see these guys playing these last 3 games, and they're just sort of skating around, and it looks like they're being attacked by a swarm of bees, which is Nashville, because Nashville is really active.
Well, with those
And,
yellow uniforms,
Yeah.
sure.
But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, maybe somewhere in the back of your mind, you enjoyed a long summer, and you know that this grind, you got 2 more months of hockey if you go all the way to the finals, and maybe, as competitive as you are, maybe somewhere in the back of your mind is like, man, I just don't want to make this grind. I'm not saying that's a conscious thought, but maybe somewhere in the depths of your conscious, you're thinking that. Because the way they're playing, I mean, there's a few guys that I really see, Marian Hossa always is, right in the middle of things offensively and defensively. But you know what? Look at Duncan Keith, I would say, especially the Stanley Cup years, was dominant. Where's Duncan Keith? Where's Brett Seabrook?
Duncan Keith is also, 34 years old now?
No, I don't think he's that old yet.
I thought he was. I thought he was. Hey, by the way, if you want to make yourself feel real old, I was reading an article in Sports Illustrated from a couple of weeks ago, a nice article in there about Dave Roberts, the Dodgers manager, talking about how he's more of a macro manager instead of a micro manager. And talking about, this was an article back when he was in spring training, and he was sitting around and asking the spring training coaches if they had any jokes.
Yeah.
And then I saw this phrase, 84-year-old Maury Wills said he had some, but he couldn't tell them. But the simple
Maury
fact
Wills,
that I saw 84 years old.
84-year-old Maury Wills.
Oh, my God, did I suddenly feel old.
Maurice Morning Wills to you.
That's right. But 84 years old,
Yeah.
It seems like yesterday.
Yeah. Doesn't it? When he and what was his record? Was it 96 stolen bases, or was that Brock, or who? What?
No,
what did Maury Wills have?
I think his was 96.
Okay.
Brock went to 103.
And Brock doesn't even
And
have
then-
the record, does he? Vince Coleman, maybe.
Either Coleman or Ricky
Ricky Henderson.
Ricky Henderson does.
Okay.
I think Ricky Henderson had. Certainly, Ricky Henderson has the career record.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
So what did you find on Duncan Keith?
Oh, yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah,
I
there you
started
go.
to
What
look
the hell?
up.
What it was? Well, how did we start this whole thing
I
off?
started this conversation about wanting to feel old and giving that, and I felt so old. I
thought
forgot
you were
what
gonna
I forgot what I was looking up.
bring back Moose Vasco.
Gee.
You know what? Jim is a Dollard St. Laurent fan.
Hey, he used to live over in the neighborhood, you know.
He did?
Yeah.
That's what you say. I haven't found any evidence of Dolly St. Laurent.
Dolly St. Laurent used to live in the neighborhood, and he used to go to the Landmark.
No kidding.
He used to go many years ago because he lived in the neighborhood. He's 30. Duncan Keith is 33. He'll be
33.
He'll be 34 July 16th.
Okay.
There's a lot of minutes on those legs too.
Yeah.
What? That's my birthday. Ah, happy birthday! You and Duncan. You and Duncan Keith. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, have a drink with him. Okay, no problem. No problem. No, somebody posted about the neighborhood, you know, the Norridge. I grew up in Norridge and Harwood Heights, and some discussion of the Landmark Pub over off of Foster, that's now owned by somebody I know, John Cola. John Cola, who owns Club Belmont.
Okay.
But he said my dad used to go over there, and Dollard St. Laurent was one of our neighbors during the season, and they used to go over there and drink.
Huh. Dolly St. Laurent. Okay. I don't know who to,
But let's get back to Duncan Keith.
Yeah, Duncan Keith.
Duncan Keith, 33 years old, you know, there's a lot of minutes on those legs.
That's true. I agree with you there.
You know, so
But he was, yeah, you know what? He just, him and Brett Seabrook, I mean, those, you know, it may be time to be looking at those guys not leaving, but somebody else taking on some of those heavy minutes. You know, as a defensive core, who the heck is going to move up?
yeah, I don't know. Honestly,
Or
I don't know.
maybe Joel has to play those guys less and, you know, just spread the minutes out more. And that might help him a little bit.
It might, and I'm impressed with Q putting faith in young players. Now,
I don't think they had much choice, to be honest with you. But
there really wasn't much of a choice this year.
And you know what? For all of us are down in the dumps because of the Hawks being in the 3-0 hole. But I have to say that these guys are not going to be rookies next year, and the team should be strong, very
think
strong
so.
again.
I think so. I always remember, you know, that they're not. You know, your comment about they're not going to be rookies. I always remember Al McGuire always saying the best thing about freshmen is they grow up to be sophomores.
They don't grow up to be sophomores. Yeah.
That's right.
Hey, what was that?
I don't know.
Did you hear that?
I heard that too.
I thought that somebody fire off a gun.
No, it sounded like a thud. Did somebody Oscar drop something upstairs?
Okay.
Well, so far the
The
building,
house is still standing,
The
John, so we don't have to
studios-
worry about that.
you know, we're all
Well-
good right now.
What about the darlings of Chicago, the Bulls? Huh? The darlings of Chicago. You know, the team of destiny.
Yeah, this is I sit there and I look at this team, and you know, you watch him on one. I think the secret was they actually played on TNT the other night, and they don't lose when they're on TNT.
Yeah, I have to say this though. I found there was a couple interesting things leading up to the playoffs. Cleveland, I think, definitely wanted to avoid the Bulls because they blew a couple of games late here that would have put them in first place. So I don't think the Cavaliers really wanted to play the Bulls right out of the box, which is interesting. And I also think that the Celtics, I'm not going to make a prediction here at all, but the Celtics might be a great team for the Bulls to play because of the matchup situation. Did you
This is very true, and I mean, I would not be totally surprised if the Bulls do win this series.
I wouldn't be surprised either. Here's the other thing I have to say. I was thinking about this. Isaiah Thomas, a very fine player, 5'9", though, that your main scorer. I look at Isaiah Thomas and the Celtics sort of like I'm thinking about the Hawks and their season. You know, when you are in the situation the Hawks are in, you know what, the 84-game season, 82
games.
you know, you lose 3 or 4 in a row, you know what, you can bounce back, and they did. With a guy like Isaiah Thomas, a small man, over the course of an 84-game season, yes, are you very good? Yeah, but now when you get into a 7-game series and there's more of an emphasis on one-on-one matchups. There's, you know, you're not playing this team today and going to Toronto to play another team tomorrow. In other words, there's not as much time in that scenario to game plan for a player.
Right.
And I also started to think about Isaiah Thomas. When can you remember in the history of the NBA a man of that size being the major guy on a team, and then leading them to any type of playoff success?
How tall was World B. Free?
World B. Free was not this. He was about, I'd say,
About
6'3", maybe.
Okay, I was thinking he was about 6.
The only guy who's comparable, I would say, would be Calvin Murphy.
Yeah. That's actually who I was thinking. I couldn't think of the name, but
We've had other small men that were good players, obviously.
Allen Iverson.
You know,
Allen Iverson was.
but
not that
another
big.
good example of a small man being the best player on your team, and that team never really being able to go that far in the playoffs. And I think that's a major problem. You have a Iverson, excellent player, but defensively you can burn him because
right.
of the, you know, you can post up, you can do whatever.
Because he didn't like to practice. Practice?
But
Practice? You talking
you know,
about practice?
the other thing I did happen to hear quite a bit of the game the other night, And what has been a pretty well-kept secret through the year, the Bulls, I believe, finished in the top 5 in rebounds in the league. The Celtics finished somewhere close to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And when you and I have talked, Jim, in the past about the NBA playoffs, my feeling in general, it's not a hard and fast rule, is the power teams, in other words, if you're stronger up front, you can control the boards, that's the team that generally is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And if you saw the discrepancy in the rebounding in the first game, I believe the Bulls rebounded them like 52-35.
Yeah.
That's the game right there.
Exactly. And the other thing that was kind of interesting, and it was kind of reinforced when I was listening to the radio yesterday, as I couldn't remember anything around the trade deadline. The Celtics didn't really do anything at the trade deadline. I don't think they made a deal.
I don't think so either.
At the trade deadline. So either they were extremely confident in their package of players that they have now, or they just looked at this and said, okay, we might be the number 1 seed, but we might need to play for a championship possibility next year, because no matter what, the East is going to go through Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
The East is going to go through Cleveland.
Are you sure about that?
I still think it's going to. I still think the East is going to go through Cleveland. And why give up talent or draft picks now if we're not completely confident in our team as having a championship potential?
I think you're I think you're on the money on your thinking on that. But I do say I have some doubts about whether. Now I understand they're thinking this.
This has got to be the
which
thought
is fine.
process, right?
And I think that's good thinking, and I think you've analyzed it really well. But I have my doubts on whether the East is going to go through Cleveland.
Okay,
I just have a lot of doubts about that.
Okay, you still have to look at. It may be,
you have to have a plan, and
you
that was
have
their
to
plan.
have you have to have a plan, and that was the plan at that point in time. Mm-hmm. Now, whether we get to that,
I agree with you.
Whether we get to that point, that had to be the logic.
Yeah,
of
I
there.
think you're hitting the logic right on the head.
And you know what I mean? Danny Ainge is not a guy that's going to make a deal if he can't win.
Yeah.
So why give up a lot of, maybe some of your players that might have potential, and a draft pick for somebody that may do something for you?
Let me ask you this: we went over we graded the Bulls last week.
A lot of guys.
And but I did notice that the guys who were in the forefront, for the most part, except for one guy, Bobby Portis, were the guys that we graded out as what was the grading system?
We had players more than a guy, and bum.
Okay, so I'd say the 4 players stepped up pretty well.
Yeah. Now let me ask you another question, since we're coming up through this, and we'll have the NBA draft and all this good stuff. Let's just say the Bulls go out after this series.
Mm-hmm.
Who are they going to trade? You're gonna put Jimmy Buckets up? You're gonna put Bobby Portis? Is Bobby Portis going to be the first one they try to dangle? Because sometimes I'm not convinced that Garpax really want to make a deal.
Well, maybe they don't. I mean, they don't have to.
If they may think they don't have to.
I don't know, where are they drafting? Although
they're not going to. Well, they screwed up the trade with that lottery pick from Sacramento, so they've lost that. So I don't know where they'll wind up. They'll wind up where they usually wind up, in the middle of the pack in basketball purgatory.
Well, I'm curious whether you think Hoiberg, not because he's done a bad job, because I think he's really done a good job this year.
But he's done a good job with what they gave him.
Do you think that? And one of the reasons he's done a good job is because I think he said, with friends like this, who needs enemies? And he decided, you know what, I'm gonna be the boss of my locker room, and I'm gonna be the boss of my team. The GM and the president are not. And based on that, do you think he'll survive? Even though coming in, he was good buddies with those guys. I doubt if he's good buddies with them now.
I doubt if he's good buddies with them either. And what did he have, a 3-year contract or a 4-year contract?
I don't know what he came in for, to be honest.
Yeah, and I don't know if the chairman's going to want to eat 2 years.
Yeah, well, that's probably not. But he's done the right thing to be more successful with his basketball team. He's gotten his players respect. When they brought in, and I'd like to know where the press mentions this once in a while, but these guys should be absolutely panned for that god-awful trade deadline deal. That
was horrible trade. We'll talk about that more, John, after you give us a break.
You're listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, April the 19th, the year 2017, with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois. And now, back to Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro.
Back on the Big 89.
Yes.
Yes, you were saying about that they should be panned, Garpak should be panned for that god-awful trade deadline trade made, where they managed to screw up a lottery pick that they could have had and got nothing, really.
Really? No.
Not, they got one guy that I would just immediately classify as a bum.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't like to use that term, but what the heck, when they're looking at Cameron Payne, what the heck did they see?
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I don't know. And the thing that I really wonder about when they talked last year about we're going to get younger, we're going to get quicker, and this is our goal, and this is what we're going to do during the off season. Well, then you had Rondo drop into your lap. You had Dwayne Wade suddenly show up, and the plan was forgotten.
Oh.
Now you've got a team of, and I give Fred Hoiberg credit for what he managed to do with a team that's basically mismatched parts.
Yeah, he's worked hard at it.
And he's worked hard at it, and he's put he's had his problems with Rondo, but then again, everybody's had problems with Rondo.
Well, the problems with Rondo, though, have nothing to do with Rondo's performance on the court. Rondo is a ball player on the court. So if you know that you're getting potentially, you might have a beef here or there during the season, and you can put up with that. I think really the rest of the players like playing with Rondo.
Mm-hmm.
He's a pro.
He's a pro.
But he will criticize management.
He will. That's always been his problems, and obviously he'll criticize his teammates too.
Yeah, well, I think he criticized after they criticized.
Right.
And you know what? That seems to all have been worked out as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really think it has been worked out, which is to everybody's credit. Because you remember after that whole thing happened, I said, get rid of all of them.
Clean house. Now, the question that I'm going to ask is, after they get through this, they had this and they said, well, so much for the plan. We made, we're going to get to the end of the season. Well, we made the playoffs with what we did, so therefore our plan works and we will proceed on as in the past.
You know what's interesting about this whole thing, Jim? I think about the players who are doing the majority of the playing right now, and I'm thinking this team would be really good for a guy like Tom Thibodeau to coach.
Oh,
I mean,
wouldn't it?
They're his type of players.
Oh, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I could hear him grunting and screaming and yelling on the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, he would love these guys. He's got some lunch pail guys in there. And
this would be his kind of guys.
Yeah. So Hoiberg, who was brought in to hoist the three ball, has actually had a morph into a Thibodeau type of coach, which I think he's done a good job of doing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Jim, we've talked before though. All of these leagues are copycat leagues, and my hat's off to the teams that don't copy, because not everybody's going to shoot the ball like the Golden State Warriors, who have
Just don't have the talent.
So if you're the Bulls and you don't have the talent, why are you going to try to play the Warriors game? You got to play the Bulls game.
You got to play the Bulls game and make when you play the Warriors, you make them play your game.
Right. And I think the biggest thing, my biggest hats off to Hoiberg, is that, yeah, he may like to play the other style game, or maybe he doesn't. Maybe that's just what he did in college, and that's the talent that he recruited or had. But you know what? He sees what he's got here, and he's changed his game, which is great, because I think that helped us make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so too. Now the question will be, again, I don't know. I would not be terribly surprised if the Bulls win the series.
No, I think they could easily win the series.
I would not be the least bit surprised. Now tonight, 7-point dog. 7-point dogs.
Well, you got to figure.
Boston, my Bulls +7 tonight. The over/under is 205.5. If anybody wants to go to the window.
You know what's interesting though? How much does the death of his sister affect the best player on the other team?
Yeah,
it's got to have. I mean, depending on the person, it's going to have different types of effects.
He's playing tonight, and he's taking off and going to the funeral tomorrow. Mm-hmm. The question will be how, after all the emotion and everything else, how he's going to react in Game 3.
Yeah.
That'll be the case.
Well, when you look at the Celtics, Jim, though, too, other than Thomas, the only name that's really stands out to me is Horford. The other guys I'm not saying they're not good, but not really sure who they are.
To me, I mean, we're old. We think of the old Celtics. We go back and we talk about Celtics basketball, and you name Havlicek, Bird.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you got a lot of.
You got a lot of names, and you got these young guys, and you look at them, and you've got a coach who's been able to bring a lot out of them.
I give him a lot of credit. I mean, I thought there was a good potential for the NBA to eat him up, and it seems like he's. Hey, they finished first this year. I think it's only about his third year with the team?
Third or fourth year.
And he's done a great job.
Yeah.
So my hat's off to Brad Stevens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anyhow, should we talk a little baseball?
Yeah, there's not that much baseball to talk, but
not much to talk about other than
there is a lot to talk about, really.
Other than a bullpen on the north side that seems to be in disarray.
Man, I'll tell you, I turned on the game last night, and it's a one-run ball game, and they bring Montgomery in to start the top of the eighth.
Mm-hmm.
And where did this guy Thames or whatever his name is, Eric Thames, come from?
Thames, he had played in the majors and played some time in Korea.
Okay.
And was a big star in Korea.
Okay.
And this is 5 games in a row he's hit a home run or got it, whatever it is.
I'll tell you what.
I picked him up on a fantasy league team, so I'm happy with him.
Well, the way he's right now, I would say, I don't know how the season's going to go, but he's locked in. You could just tell the man's.
Oh, absolutely.
He's seeing the ball well. He's he knows which pitches are in the strike zone, what's not.
Yeah.
Doing a really good job.
3 for 4 last night, hitting 405 early on in the year, and when he came up at one point. Last night, they put the slash numbers up, and his batting average and his on-base percentage, his slugging percentage was 1,000.
Well, it was 1,000, yeah.
Well, I don't think it can be sustained, obviously, but wow, what a start!
But he and Braun managed to put the lights out for us last night in the eighth. He got on, and then Braun hit one to the wall, and he scored, and then. They knocked Braun in, and that was it. So our bullpen right now is not looking so hot.
No, the bullpen, let's see. Well, Wade Davis still hasn't given up an earned run. I mean, his WHIP is .75, and they're hitting 150 against him. Carl Edwards is back off the list, and it sounds like they're going to play the bereavement list game because Tommy LaStella has gone on it now.
Oh, we're going on to the bereavement list game. Okay.
Yeah,
It's nothing like the newlywed game.
Nothing like the newlywed game, but Rondon has pitched very well. However, you get to the other end, you get to the back end here. Grimm, who may suddenly find his curveball or everything else, it's just been god awful. And Dunsing has been in 2 games, and he's got a 13.5 ERA. Uehara, he's 42. Yeah, he's 42 years old. But no, it's kind of a puzzle.
How about Strop?
Stropey. Stropey's got an ERA of 9.
Yeah, he can't throw. You know what? I'll tell you, that guy.
Maybe if he fixed his hat, put his hat on straight, he could pitch better.
He must have some stuff when they look at him in the bullpen or whatever, because, and I know he's got good stuff, but the other day I turned the game on and it was on the radio, and they had just brought a reliever in, who I didn't catch his name, and then all of a sudden they said the count, 2-0, and I go, it's got to be Strop. I mean, the guy never pitches ahead in the count ever.
He begins every batter 2-0.
Yeah. You might as well just, Manfred wants to have the runners just go down to first on the intentional walk. How about this?
Right.
When Strop pitches, it's just automatically 2-0.
Starts with 2-0.
I mean, that would be really,
he wants to speed up the game, and I just see this item in here. The Major League Baseball said the average time of a 9-inning game has increased 5 minutes to 3 hours and 5 minutes during the first 2 weeks of the season.
Well, you know what I can't understand? Baseball is, I understand that there were faster games back in the day, but say you're the owner, okay? You have a 3 hour and 5 minute game. Why is that a bad thing? I mean, people are eating your hot dogs, they're drinking your beer, they're drinking your Coke, they're buying whatever the hell.
They're buying their stuff.
Excuse my language. Whatever you're selling.
They're buying your stuff. Your media outlet has got commercials that they are able to fit in.
If I was an owner and Manfred started saying that stuff, I'd say, when is your contract up?
There you go.
You're done. You are done, buddy. Can we lengthen the game out another 10 minutes?
Yeah. Can we figure out what we can do with this here?
I don't think there's anything wrong with the game, Jim.
I always thought.
I mean, lengthwise.
Lengthwise, when did it really kind of go off the rails? When we started to have this age of specialization.
That's when you're right.
That's when it really went off the rails.
That's when it got longer. That's not that there's anything wrong with the game, but it just got longer because you had 5 pitching changes during the game.
Yeah, and I made and now that we're talking about this, made me think of this since I saw our friend Statboy last night.
Oh yeah, how's he doing?
He's doing good. Our friend Scott lost his mom this past week. One of our ushers when we got so we were out there and Steve was out there. But there was one time I happened to be glancing at the box scores that day, and it was a game 1-0. Well, 1-0, 9-inning game, 3 hours and 57 minutes. 3 hours and 57 minutes. And I emailed Steve. I said, a 1-0, 9-inning game, 3 hours and 57 minutes? And he said, I noted that too, and I posted it on whatever, this
Any
was.
rain or anything?
He said, I posted this on whatever board it was. This was before Facebook and all that stuff. I posted it on that. And he said, I got a response back from someone who said, well, when you look at he said, if you total up the number of pitches and divide it by that, it was actually one of the faster played games during of the day because it was like 23 seconds between each pitch.
Okay.
But
So-
3 hours and 50 minutes.
Well, here's another one of the problems, though. I was having coffee with Joe DiGiovanni, who's a neighborhood guy, yesterday, and a big baseball fan, and we were talking about. I had one about 6 or 7 years ago during in January. They replayed a Cubs game, Cubs Phillies from it had to be the '80s. Stick Michael was the Cubs manager. Lee Elia was the Phillies manager. I don't remember who pitched for the Phillies, but Les Lancaster was on the mound for the Cubs. He gets into the sixth inning, and he gets into a jam, and Michael comes out. And I'm thinking today's baseball. And I'm like, okay, he's out of the game. Michael leaves him in, pitches out of the jam, goes to the seventh, and then he got into the eighth. And finally, he didn't like the matchup. I think they had a strong lefty hitter coming up. So he brings in DePino. DePino finishes off the eighth. And I'm thinking, okay, Smith's going to start the ninth. Nope, DePino starts the ninth. Gets one batter. Then he brings Smith in for the last two batters. I'm thinking, if they play the same game today, that's at least 5 pitchers, maybe 6.
Yeah.
Okay, because Lancaster never survives the sixth. As soon as he's in trouble, he'd be out.
Right.
And this is where the game is slowing down. So many and there's nothing you can do to legislate that out of the game.
No.
I mean, you have to let the managers manage the way they feel they have to
That
manage.
they feel that they have to do it. The situations call for it if they're by the book.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's no doubt about it. You're not going to legislate that away from the game.
The other thing, Jim, though, is that the pitchers themselves. I'm not talking about the time in between pitches because, again, the umpires, the players, everybody's steeped in the tradition of the game. Nobody is going to want to hurry it along because that's just not the way the game's played. But one of the problems, I'm listening to the Cubs the other day, and they're talking about the Marlins were playing, and Straley was pitching for the Marlins. And I think at one point he had like a no-hitter going. Then all of a sudden, Pat Hughes says, well, Straley's out of the game, but there's still no hits for the other team. And they're speculating, well, was there walks? Was he wild? And sure enough, though, I think the game, I don't know how many hits were ended. The Marlins win the game. I don't know how many hits there were involved. It was a couple days ago, Jim.
Oh, okay.
It was Easter Sunday, I think.
Then it should be in the Monday.
But at any rate, I believe the Marlins won the game. It should be. I think they mentioned the game in the recap of the Major League.
Marlins 4, Mets 2.
Yeah.
Dan Straley and 3 relievers didn't allow a hit until Neil Walker singled with 2 outs in the 8th.
Yeah, so there you go. But Straley was out of the game, and there still were no hits.
He did walk 5.
So he walked 5, so that's the
Okay.
reason he's out of the game.
And he was 5 1/3 innings, and he was already up to 93 pitches.
Well, do you remember, Jim, when who was the Japanese guy that the Red Sox had? I think it was the Red Sox. Was it Matsuzaka? Is that ring a name?
The name, but I can't remember.
But he
who
was
had him.
supposed to be and he actually had maybe a year or 1 or 2 good years here. But I'm watching a exhibition game, spring training game with my son Tom, and Tom is he's a young guy. He's this is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. They hype this guy up so everybody who listens to that stuff is all over these guys. And we're watching the game, and after about 2 innings, I look at Tom and I go, Tom, this guy stinks. And he goes, what are you talking about? I go, he won't throw a strike. He's like 3 balls on every batter, and it's a exhibition game. I mean, it's spring training, and he's nibbling at the corners, and that's part of your problem. You're a major league pitcher. You're supposed to have good stuff. I'm not saying you throw the ball down the middle of the plate, but you can't be going 3 balls on every batter. And a lot of these guys do. They don't have the confidence in their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another thing that's causing the games to go longer.
Yeah.
Jim's like sighing, like, what the heck? Major League Baseball.
it's getting-
What's going on?
And I'm looking back at the little column in the Tuesday Sun-Times here, This Day in Baseball. Things in the past, like in 1899, John McGraw made his managerial debut at age 26 with the Orioles.
26.
He
Holy crap.
Right. He led them to a 5-3 victory over the New York Giants, a team he later managed for more than 30 years.
Wow.
And it was. Thought about this over the weekend again. I don't know when it was. What was it? Saturday was the Jackie Robinson Day, where all the major league players wear number 42.
I detest that day.
And the don't MASSARO. But
I
anyhow,
love Jackie Robinson. I just hate that day.
They unveiled a stadium or a statue at Dodger Stadium of Jackie Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
So Rachel Robinson was there, and Vin Scully spoke.
Okay.
And talking about Jackie Robinson and that, but you think back the interesting career of Scully and what he bridged.
Oh God, yeah.
67 years doing Dodger games. In 1950, when he started, Connie Mack
Was still managing
was
the
still
Phillies?
was
Or the
still
A's,
ma-
I should say?
was still managing the Phillies
The A's.
and the A's rather, and Connie Mack was born during the Civil War.
Yeah.
So you've got the start of baseball through the modern era.
Well, did you?
So, talking about two men.
By the way, did you see the guy who's replaced him? Who I think is it Joe Davis?
Joe Davis, I believe.
Joe Davis, and he's a local guy, and he's talking about. He goes, "Could you imagine? Now I'm replacing Vin Scully, so I'm the Dodgers manager. I've been a lifelong Cubs fan, Dodgers announcer, I should say." And he says, and last year, I'm doing the Dodgers playoff games, and the Cubs end up winning the World Series. He goes, can you imagine the way I must have felt?
Mixed emotions.
Mixed emotions is right.
Mixed emotions for sure.
But
I heard an interview with him. He sounds like a really, really good guy.
I believe wherever
And
he
was
went to
doing-
college, he played football, I think.
And he was doing the games that Vin didn't do last year.
Yeah.
So he was basically the road
Yeah.
guy last year.
Jim, did you happen to see? I wanted to bring this up because I think it's such BS. Let's put it that way. There was an article in the paper yesterday about. I think they're going to call it the Lexi rule. A woman golfer, Lex. Can't think of her last name, but it should be in yesterday's paper. But the Lexi rule is what they're contemplating is that there was a recent. It's further toward the back of the section. It's in the USA Today part of it.
Oh, okay.
What happened is this golfer and her opponent were in a tight. Well, actually, it wasn't that tight.
Oh, okay.
This lady here that you're looking at was ready to win this golf tournament.
Lexi Thompson.
And a TV viewer, called and said that when she replaced the ball on the green, I believe, that it was slightly off.
But that was the day before.
What?
Thompson lost. I'm looking at the caption.
Well, she ended up losing 4 strokes and lost the tournament by a stroke. She lost 4 strokes on the penalty.
She lost.
Take a look. You'll see. She lost 4 strokes.
Okay, so, all right. So this was on Sunday, the final round.
Yeah. And I didn't even know that this could happen. A TV viewer watching the tournament called in, told the officials she had misplaced the ball. And actually what ended up happening, she had misplaced the ball slightly, but it gave her no advantage. And she ended up with a 4-stroke penalty and ended up losing the tournament by a stroke.
On something that happened the day before. It didn't even happen that day.
Yeah. So first off, how does golf have a crazy rule like that?
How
We're
in God's
you know what,
name
Jim?
did it-
I'm watching a golf tournament, but Arnold Palmer, didn't put his ball back in the right place. I'm
19
calling up. I'm calling.
In 1960.
Well, you know what I thought of immediately? Here's somebody, maybe somebody in her past has a grudge against her, doesn't like her for some reason, and just decided to make her life miserable and picked up the phone. How would you like that?
Oh, my God. What is wrong with us?
Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, how does professional golf even have a rule like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't realize that such a thing existed. I mean, what if baseball had that rule? Could you imagine? The baseball offices would be going crazy. They'd be, hey, that umpire missed that call.
Yeah.
Got to reverse it.
Good Lord.
How about football?
How about
yeah.
football? Yeah.
Football.
Franco Harris didn't catch that ball. It was off there. They take that touchdown away.
Yeah, take it away.
Hey, take that touchdown away. Hey, don't do that. That's no good.
But I thank God they're considering changing the rule, because I'm thinking, how the heck did they decide to have such a godforsaken rule in the first place?
Ridiculous rule. The first step remains obvious. Just stop people who are watching at home from being able to report supposed violations. If a replay man in a TV control truck at the event reports a violation, or if a guy in a hospitality tent sees the replay and thinks there's a violation, or if someone following a player thinks there's a violation, fine. Let them report the potential violation. But when someone 1,000 miles away wants to get involved, the game should stop it. Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Hey, all right. Empire is the Derby frontrunner.
Empire. You know what is
Classic Empire.
what is
May 6th.
May 6th? You know what, Jim? I read that article. I didn't realize they were talking about
2-year-old.
well, they're talking about, like, if you read further in the article, they're talking about horses qualifying, say being in the top say 50. I didn't realize that's the way they did the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
I thought if you had the big bucks
you
and
throw
you
the
wanted
bucks
to run
up,
your
no.
horse in the Derby,
No,
you
there's points that they have to earn to be
Points.
able to do that, and the top 20 are eligible to enter,
okay.
which is usually why it's a cavalry charge coming out with 20 horses, although they're figuring 18 of them are probable.
18. I like it though. I like the big field.
That's a tough field, and those guys who wind up on that inside post, I always feel sorry for them, because you're going to have everybody coming from that outside, and they always have to get the auxiliary starting
And
gate.
they want to cut you off.
and
right?
they're going to cut right across.
yeah.
And unless you get a really good jump, it's really hard unless you find that little gap and can get around traffic.
I know we're almost done, but you're more of a horse racing fan than I am. But I'll tell you, the underrated athletes in the world are jockeys. For
Anybody who says they're not athletes are fools.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, jockeys, your judgment, you have to have strength, because you got an animal that outweighs you by God knows how much.
You're about 112 pounds, and you got a 2,000-pound
Yeah.
horse
I mean
that you're riding.
Yeah. So and you don't want to kill yourself. You don't want to kill anybody else. You don't want to. I mean, there's a lot going on out there.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I always give those guys credit.
Yeah, big
because
time.
they are amazing, that the way they can handle those horses. And you know what? If they're the regular rider of a horse, it's always amazing how the horse responds to them.
Well, yeah.
That they really get that. They get that bond together if they've ridden if that jockey has ridden them a number of times.
Well, weren't you telling? Was it the last broadcast we did? Were you telling me that Secretariat was a ham?
Oh, Secretariat was a big ham.
So these horses are not stupid.
No. Secretariat was, if Secretariat knew, if somebody was taking Secretariat's picture, Secretariat was like,
Hey,
how you doing?
I am.
Here I am.
Yeah, Secretariat. It's me, Secretariat.
I'm Secretariat, by golly.
Jim, how many Triple Crown winners do you maybe give an approximate there have been over the course of these three races? Would you say?
dozen maybe.
Yeah, I was going to and didn't up until last year we had a long
It
time
had been
between.
it had been a gap, and I mean you're going to get those periods because when Secretariat won, there hadn't been a Triple Crown winner since the late 40s.
Oh my gosh.
So you get those, then all of a sudden you might get a little streak.
Yeah.
Number of Triple Crown winners. 12 horses have won the Triple Crown.
12. Okay. So you're right on the money.
Hit the mark. Sir Barton in 1919, Gallant Fox in 1930, Omaha in 1935, War Admiral in 1937, Whirlaway in 1941, Count Fleet in 1943, Assault in 1946, Citation in 1948, and then it was to 1973 before Secretariat won.
Whoa.
And then 77 and 78 was Seattle, Slew, and Affirmed, and then it was 2015 before American Pharoah won.
Wow.
It's an accomplishment.
Yeah, it's
an
a big
accomplishment.
accomplishment.
And
Yeah.
those, you get those races where you look at it, especially when you look at the Derby. A lot of times these horses get entered in the Derby, and they're out for the run. And the fact that the owner can say, "Well, my horse ran in the Derby."
Yeah, sure.
Finished
Well,
at the back of the pack, but by golly, my horse ran in the Derby.
I would think, though, the fact that even if you finished in the back of the pack, that the fact your horse was good enough to be in the Derby probably it probably really increases the value of the horse.
Increases the value of the horse, and there's a great amount of pride. I think back to the year Secretariat. I think it was the year Secretariat. There was a guy around here, Joe Kelman, who was a horse owner.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of him.
Shecky Green ran.
Yeah, okay. Shecky Green.
Shecky Green. And,
Yeah.
So that there's always a great deal of pride and a great accomplishment when you see your horse out there. I always love the game. We always enjoy an afternoon at the track.
Mm-hmm.
You think back to the old days that when I'd go out there and you'd have guys like you'd have horses like Maxwell G, who was a
trotter, was it?
No, Maxwell G was a thoroughbred. Maxwell G was a gelding, but Maxwell G was a great closer. I mean, that horse just ran.
Who was the horse, Jim? The local horse that ran for so many years and was still a top flight horse. Geez.
Well, I know Maxwell G ran to.
Maybe it was Maxwell.
He
G.
was 15 when he died.
Okay.
And my friend Jim O'Brien and I used to go out there. That we always, there was a horse out there that was named Harass, Harass, as in bother.
Yeah.
We always hoped one day that we could put enough money together and claim Harass in a claiming race, and then enter in a race, and at the last minute pull the horse out, because we wanted to hear Phil Georgieff say, "We have a late scratch Harass."
Well, I think on that note, we better close.
I think on that note, we're just going to wrap it up.
Oh, boy.
All right. Once again, we never even got. I wanted to talk about a White Sox bullpen and who's going to be traded, so I think the next time we'll talk about that.
Yep.
All right. After that classy ending to this show, I think we'll wrap it up and get on out of here. Hope you had some fun. We did. Once again, we spent an hour and change trying to figure out what to talk about, and we managed to fill the whole time. All right. Thanks for listening. We will catch you all down the road, couple of weeks. John, behave yourself when do whatever the doctor says to fix your wrist.
Yeah, John. Good luck with that, buddy.
Yeah, because I don't want to hear any nonsense from you.
Yep.
All right. We'll catch you in a couple of weeks.
We need you.
Until that time, we are Taillights.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, April the 19th on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS-FM Norwich, and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Seconda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, April the 18th, the year 2017. Until next time, please be safe and thanks for listening. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois.